Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1120, 1120. May the 2nd, 2020, Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so we have a lot to get to today. Still on the Spygate hoax and the coup. More and more coming out every day. More information. I don't know if it's being leaked or if it's what's going on, but we're starting to get a lot more information about what's going on with Durham's investigation. So there's someone leaking to Fox News, or something's going on here, because we're getting this type of stuff, and we know that since the beginning of Durham's investigation, it's been airtight. There's been no leaks. So I don't think that these are accidental. And of course, he has expanded his team and brought in some new people. So maybe some of those new people are, becoming aware of what's going on in the investigation, and maybe now there's some new people who are letting some things out of the bag. But I think that may be why we're getting more information now. But anyway, before I get into the sort of the breaking news, the new information for the day, there's been quite a few articles and conversations in the last couple days about this interesting timing and activity by Christopher Steele. And a lot of people are, talking about, well, Christopher Steele destroyed, all these documents. He bleach bitted them or whatever. He got rid of all these documents that he had about his own associations with the dossier and everything, and people speculating on why that may be, and does it have any thing to do with the fact that they had this meeting in the White House on January the 5th, 2017, to discuss how they were going to, they discussed several things. Obviously, they discussed Flynn and how they were going to, ramrod Flynn, but they were also discussing how they could continue to carry out the investigation into Trump and his campaign, which would include Flynn, after Obama and his people had left the White House and Trump came in, which was going to happen in about 15 days from the date of that meeting, and they were discussing all this kind of stuff. So here's I don't think it's that difficult, and I think this is probably pretty common sense to sort of answer those questions. Is why did Christopher Steele destroy all those records or documents or files that he had on his so-called dossier material work, what have you? I think it's pretty simple to me what's going on here. I mean, Christopher Steele was really hired to be the face of the smear campaign. His job was to go out and sell the smear campaign. He understood that, and he was okay with that, because there's no law against running a smear campaign or even telling lies about a presidential candidate in a presidential election. It happens in every election, probably not just in the United States, but in the UK and around the world as well. Political campaigns are dirty. There's a lot of lies that are spread, and this is just part of the dirty nature of politics. So Christopher Steele was okay being the face of the dossier, to go out and sell it and peddle it to the media, because it was actually a media smear campaign, and he was okay with that. And he's paid, what, $168,000 to be the salesman, the pitchman, the launderer of the intelligence. But I think what happens with Christopher Steele is, at some point, and whether or not he was tipped off or he was contacted after the January 5th meeting and told, hey, they're going to be moving forward with his investigation. They're now going to go after Trump. The attempt to keep him from winning the election, that didn't work. And remember, that's why Steele was, two things. He was trying to help make sure that Trump did not get reelected. He was happy to sign up for that. But he also said in his original deposition in the BuzzFeed case that he was hired to procure or acquire information for the Hillary Clinton campaign that they could use to challenge the election results if she lost. That's what he told. That's what he said in his deposition in the BuzzFeed case. So he kind of understands these things. But what happens with Christopher Steele, I think, is there in January things get much more serious, because he realizes that their original campaign to stop Trump did not work. And of course, then we get to the first of the year, and either he's tipped off, or he just senses it, or someone told him. But somehow he comes to the understanding that this is not going to stop just with the smear campaign to keep Trump from getting elected. And he knows at this point, he's starting to figure out, if he doesn't already know, and he probably did, that the dossier was complete bullshit. Complete bullshit. Now, he had no problem going out and selling the bullshit as a political smear campaign. That's routine. He's happy to do it. But then he realizes right after the first of the year that they're not, that the DOJ, the FBI, they're not going to back off. They're not going to back off and let it go. That they're actually going to move forward and try to take down Trump, people around him. And what they're going to use is the dossier, which has got his name all over it. He signed up to be the front man to go out and sell it. And so now he's probably thinking to himself, oh my God, do you see what's happening here? They're going to use the dossier, which has now got my name all over it. They call it the Steele dossier. And they're going to use this, and it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. And at some point, I'm going to get thrown under the bus here. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble with this deal because it's got my name all over it. And it's total bullshit. And this is going to go badly. It's going to end very badly. And the best thing that I can do right now is disassociate myself with this whole game. I mean, paying me to come in and be the face of the smear campaign was fine. I hate Trump. I wanted to stop him. And if there was anything in the dossier that was actually true, then maybe it could be used to take a legal action or something like that. But at this point, Steele's probably figuring out that the dossier is complete bullshit, if he didn't already know it, because it was all put together by, of course, Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS, and the Clinton people. They're the ones who put the dossier together. So he's just out there selling it. So Steele probably realizes at some point that he is going to be the face of that he is the face of the dossier, and that's going to be used to try to carry out this, what essentially is a coup, and carry out all these criminal investigations, which will likely end up in charges and indictments and all this kind of stuff. And he knows he's going to get right smack dab in the middle of it, because it's going to be his so-called Steele dossier that's going to be the use for it. So I think it's perfectly natural and common sense thinking. I think any of us would probably do the same in Christopher Steele's position when you realize that that you were okay with being part of something that wasn't really illegal. It's dirty as hell. It was wrong as it could be, but it wasn't illegal. But once they start using it to use it as evidence to get FISA warrants to start doing investigations, surveillance, and all these other things, and he learns about all this, he's like, uh-oh, this is going down a completely different path. I didn't sign up for any of this. And at the end of the road, when it's revealed that this was total bullshit, and it's got my name all over it, I'm the face of it, the Steele dossier, I'm going to end up being the guy they throw under the bus. So I think Christopher Steele was sensing this, or he was tipped off to it, and he decided to, that's when he decided, okay, I'm out of this thing. And I think that that's what Christopher Steele was doing when he destroyed all those documents. That was his way to himself of saying, I am out of this thing. This thing's going down a road that I don't want to go. I've gone far enough, because now it's not just a smear campaign. That's just dirty politics. Now you talk about, doing criminal investigations, getting FISA warrants, doing all these sorts of things on something that's total bullshit and it's got my name on it. No thanks. I don't want to be part of any of this. So I think that that's all that really happened with Christopher Steele, and I think that's why he destroyed all those documents. I don't think there's a big question mark there. I think it's fairly, common sense. It's what anyone else would do when you realize that you're involved in something that's now going down a road that you don't want to go, and especially when it implicates you, not just implicates you, but makes you the centerpiece, because it's got your name all over it. And I think that that's probably what was going through Christopher Steele's mind when he destroyed all those files. Be my guess. Now, of course, the last couple days, everybody's been caught up in the documents, recent releases of documents on Michael Flynn. And so now, though, we're getting the backstory of exactly how this investigation began. Because remember, what triggered the release of these 11 pages was this FBI field office alerting the folks at Main Justice at the FBI that okay, we think we're going to end this investigation into Michael Flynn, because we've looked into it and there just isn't any substantial evidence that there's anything that we can find that he did wrong or had any, that he was colluding with Russians. There's just really no evidence. And the thing that they were investigating and what they were talking about that they had investigated and found that they couldn't corroborate it or couldn't prove it was true or what have you, what they were actually investigating was the tip that was given to them by the fat man, Stefan Halper, you know, the former coke addict. And he might still be a coke addict for all I know. But apparently it was this 2014 tip given to the FBI by Stefan Halper. So this tells you that Halper was involved as early as 2014 with Flynn. Okay? And that's probably why they brought him back in January of 2017, according to Lakova, to put him on Carter Page, Papadopoulos, and Paul Manafort, or anyone else. But primarily Papadopoulos and Page. So it was this tip that Halper provided that said that Flynn, at this, you know, I guess it was the RT, no, it was the Cambridge event, not the RT, it was a Cambridge event, where Michael Flynn was at Cambridge. He was the director of national intelligence at that time. He was the, or Defense Intelligence Agency. He was the head of Obama's Defense Intelligence Agency at that time. And he goes there to Cambridge where he's invited, and it's like it's a spy convention or what have you, all intelligence people. And it was there that Halper says that this is the tip that he provides, is that Flynn, or that actually Lakova, Svetlana Lakova, jumped into a taxi cab that Michael Flynn had hailed. He gets in a taxi cab, and Lakova jumps into the taxi cab with him, and that they take this ride, and they go to some train station and on their journey. And Halper points out that she's this dual Russian UK citizen. She's got connections to Russians and all this kind of stuff. And that was the tip that was provided by Stefan Halper, the fat man, that FBI field office was investigating. And so they looked into it and found out they couldn't corroborate it. And in fact, they actually contacted, they actually spoke to Lakova. She denied it and said, no, I didn't jump in his taxi cab. My husband picked me up, you know. And so they actually contacted her husband, who was her boyfriend at the time, now husband, and contacted him, and he corroborated the story and said, yeah, she told me what time to pick her up, and I came and picked her up. And Michael Flynn wasn't in the car with us. So they were able to debunk Stefan Halper's fake story, that Lakova had jumped into Flynn's taxi cab. No, didn't happen. Lakova's husband, then boyfriend, now husband, picked her up, and also Flynn was not alone at that conference. He was with another officer from the Defense Intelligence Agency. So he had someone with him. Another, I assume he was a military officer who was there, and he was questioned, and he said no, he was around Flynn all night long, and he wasn't aware of Flynn having any contact with Lakova that was out of line or anything like that. So the FBI field office at that point pretty much debunked or knocked down or wasn't able to prove the allegation and the tip made by Halper, the fat man. That's why they sent that electronic communication over to the Crossfire Hurricane team to say, hey, we at this point looked into this thing, and we don't think that there's any reason to continue this investigation into Michael Flynn. We can't find anything that he has any connections to Russians or anything like that. They had essentially investigated the tip by Halper, which was a total bullshit lie, which is, of course, as we can see, this is how Halper operates. He just makes up shit, and then they use it to get warrants and spy on people and all these other things. So Stefan Halper obviously has got a lot of problems of a criminal nature. I'm sure Durham is all over him. That's a no-brainer. That's an easy one. Stefan Halper is absolutely going to be charged with crimes, I'm sure, because he was being paid by the taxpayers. And now, if he had just been a private operative and not receiving taxpayer money, well, I guess you're allowed to tell lies, right? But no, because he was operating in an official capacity, being paid taxpayer dollars, and he fed this information to the FBI, that would be that you're not allowed to lie to the FBI, even if you're an informant. You're not allowed. You can lie to everyone else, but if you're working for the FBI as an informant, which he was, you're not allowed to give the FBI false information, which he did. So they knocked that down. So anyway, that's what led to that electronic communication to the Crossfire Hurricane team saying, hey, we think we should end this investigation into Flynn. There's really nothing that we can find shows he's colluding with any Russians or anything like that. And they were talking about the fact that they investigated this tip from Halper and knocked it down. So that's kind of what was going on there. And of course, we know what happened after that. Strzok says no, don't end the investigation yet, because they had another plan, which was to go for the Logan Act. Now, the problem that the FBI has with the DOJ is they're on two different sheets of music, because as we can see from the notes, the handwritten notes, and from the texts between McCabe, Strzok, Page, we can see that their plan is to go for this Logan Act thing. But when Sally Yates is testifying in front of Congress, she kind of knocks that down and doesn't agree that it was because of the Logan Act. She says no, it was because Flynn lied to Pence about his phone call with Kislyak. So she doesn't go down the same road. So that's obviously a problem. That's a big problem, because you have the prosecution side of things, the DOJ, saying it wasn't about Logan Act. It was about Flynn lying to Pence, which could create national security issues, when in fact the FBI totally pursued it based on Logan Act, and neither of the two say anything about the other. So they're talking at the FBI about is Logan Act. They will say nothing about the fact that it was about Flynn lying to Pence, and on the DOJ side they say nothing really about the Logan Act. They're talking totally about Flynn lying to Pence. So you see, they didn't really have their shit together on this thing. And you get the impression now when you read all this stuff and you look at the dates and all these things that were happening, you can see that there were a lot of things happening very, very quickly in real time. And they were making a lot of mistakes. And there was nobody really in charge. It's like you had various little subgroups running their own little deal. And they weren't even being straight with each other. So they couldn't really communicate well. There wasn't one central person at the top really running everything. You had 4 or 5 different subgroups sort of running their own little thing and just trying to throw everything they could against the wall to see what would stick. And so that's why everything looks really disorganized and disjointed, is because it was. They were almost in, I wouldn't say frenzy mode, but there were certainly a lot of things were happening very fast. They were making lots of mistakes. They all had their own little cliques and their own little things that they were doing, which were not coordinated. So things got really out of whack and disjointed, and that's how things ended up getting messed up so badly. And this is what I think is revealed when you look at the dates and the activities and these recent releases that we've seen. That's just my observation. So regarding Svetlana Lakova, she's basically saying on her Twitter page that the crackhead FBI liar Stefan Halper made up the story about her jumping into a car with General Flynn in the UK after an event. She says that Halper wasn't even there. She says that Halper's spying on Flynn actually began long before the 2016, which we know this was 2014. And of course she says that Flynn, and she has some sort of, I guess, document she's seen that says that Flynn, or that the Halper, was actually brought in January of 2016 to do his thing against the Trump campaign. So that would put him in there very early, January 2016, if that is correct. Lakova also says that Halper was bragging or talking to colleagues after the Mueller investigation began, saying that it was going to be Trump's Watergate. Now, just a couple other things here. regarding now, we can see that this is not just going to stop at Comey and Yates. This is going to go into the Obama administration. It's going to bring in Obama himself. And we know this because the counterintelligence operation would have had to have been improved by Trump. But also, as it regards, in the case of Michael Flynn, the same thing is true. Because Obama would have had to have okayed the FBI going after Flynn. I mean, he was the incoming national security advisor. And that's probably what Rice was referring to when she said, Obama said to do it by the book. I think they were referring to Flynn in this case, would be my suspicions. Not just, obviously the overall Trump-Russia thing, I think, obviously, but I think that specific comment was about Flynn, because they did discuss the Flynn situation, and he was the incoming national security advisor. And I find it very difficult to believe, in fact impossible to believe, that the DOJ or FBI would have carried out an investigation into the incoming national security advisor without the knowledge and the okay or approval from the president, Obama. So I know that probably Barr and Durham really did not want to go there. I think they probably wanted to limit this down to FBI and DOJ, maybe some crooked intelligence people, Brennan and people like that, Clapper. But I think that we've reached a point now where there's just too much evidence pointing at the complicity of the Obama administration, his cabinet, himself, and his cabinet members like Susan Rice. And I think that while they probably didn't want to go there, I think we've reached a point now where Durham probably is talking to Barr, and they're realizing that they really have no choice now. They really have no choice now but to eventually question Obama, possibly calling him in, subpoena him in front of a grand jury. Now, we really don't throw former presidents in jail or charge them with crimes. So he would probably be issued a pardon, or they would give him a way out. They would give him a way out. But I think now it's almost very difficult for me to believe that Durham can complete his investigation without questioning Barack Hussein Obama, and absolutely Susan Rice, and probably Lynch as well. Hard to believe that she doesn't know about any of this that's going on. Hard to believe. Well, we had Lou Dobbs saying that Fox News sources are telling them, Fox News sources are telling Fox News that Durham has been briefing Attorney General Barr on his investigation daily, and that people close to Durham's investigation are saying that the actions taken by the FBI and the DOJ as it relates to the recent document releases regarding Michael Flynn are enough to bring charges against Obama administration officials. That's according to John Durham. So here's a source, someone who's aware or within the Durham investigation or knows what's going on, saying that as far as Durham is concerned, based on what he's seen from these releases of documents regarding Michael Flynn's case, that Durham believes that there is enough evidence there to bring charges against Obama administration officials. And I think we would be talking about the Mueller team here, because it was the Mueller team who actually picked up the original investigation, and it was the Mueller team that eventually went after Flynn. It's just that they went down a slightly different road. They were working the FARA violation situation, but not with Russia. They were working the FARA violation against Flynn as far as for his lobbying efforts with Turkey. And so that's the road that they took. So yeah, this doesn't surprise me. I assume that this would be the case. Doesn't surprise me. We also have Elizabeth Vaughn over at Red State, who's done some really good reporting on Spygate. And she says, quote, Durham has reviewed the unsealed Flynn documents and is disturbed that no whistleblowers came forward early on, considering there had to be more than a few officials who knew what was going on. Fox News has reported that Durham is building a serious case against some agents of the FBI. Also, Attorney General Barr has moved, this is really good news right here, Attorney General Barr has moved Jeff Jensen, the U.S. Attorney from Missouri, over to the Durham team. So now that he's finished with his Flynn work, and he's done a hell of a good job, he's now been moved over to the Durham team, having just completed his investigation into the Mike Flynn case. Fox has also learned that Barr talks to Durham every day, and that the president has been briefed, and that he has been asked by the Attorney General not to comment on the investigation. Also, sources are telling Fox that James Baker is now a cooperating witness for Durham. And that was apparently after he was told that he was looking at a boatload of criminal charges. The Senate will be back in session this coming Monday, and one of the first matters that are going to be taking up is the confirmation of John Ratcliffe as DNI. I like having Richard Grinnell over there, and hopefully when Ratcliffe assumes his new position as the permanent DNI, hopefully they'll keep Grinnell around. He's done a pretty good job. We also have the Crimson Tide Elf, Jeff Sessions, making a statement yesterday saying that he told Trump to fire Comey virtually from day one. Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't think Sessions is a liar. But that's interesting to know that Sessions was telling Trump to fire Comey from day one. Probably good advice, because Comey certainly had to approve, along with, of course, Rodenstein obviously approved, of investigating Sessions. Sessions was one of the people in the Trump campaign that was under investigation. Can you imagine that? You're the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and your deputy, Rosenstein, goes behind your back and joins the corrupt Crossfire Hurricane team to put you down as one of the people they want to investigate. Investigating his boss, Jeff Sessions. Yeah, Jeff Sessions, a Russian stooge. Now, I'm not a big fan of Jeff Sessions. I think he's weak. I don't think he's a bad man. I just think he's weak. I think he really bobbled the situation badly. And, but Jeff Sessions, a Russian agent? Come on, man. Come on, man. And, of course, we had Charles Grassley sending out that tweet yesterday where he says, new DOJ/Flynn documents are stamped with SCO, as in Special Counsel's Office. Did Mueller have these documents? Question mark. Why did his team sit on them? Question mark. What else is Mueller hiding? Question mark. Those are all good questions, Chuck Grassley. Now, I don't think it's any stretch at this point to suggest that the Mueller team is now clearly under the microscope of Durham. And as I have said, and as many of you know, or at least believe, the Mueller extension was just an extension of the Crossfire Hurricane team's investigation in the coup. I mean, Mueller was just a continuation of the same coup. And his now he's clearly out to lunch, clueless. But certainly Weissman and these other people, Jenny Rhee and Van Grack and these other people who were actually doing the work on the Mueller investigation, certainly they had all these documents, as Grassley is pointing out. They knew all of this. They were part of the coup effort. Certainly, I mean, a major part of the coup effort. And, of course, they're targets of Durham right now. They were active participants in the attempted coup. I mean, it's not like they just, were running a straight investigation. I mean, it's crooked as hell. You don't have to be a genius to figure any of this out. And Durham is a pretty smart guy. So, yeah, he knows all this. So I certainly would expect that when these indictments come down and when people are being questioned, brought in front of a grand jury, I certainly expect that Andrew Weisass and Brandon Van Grack and Jenny Rhee and some of those other ones will all be brought in front of grand juries. And yes, they were involved in crimes. Absolutely. They're part of the coup. And you can expect that they will be called in and asked to answer some questions. Of course, a couple of days ago, we reported that emails show that James Baker, the guy over there at the Office of Net Assessment who's suspected of being the one who leaked the Flynn Kislyak phone call, Stefan Halper, the Fat Man Cokehead's boss. We learned that he had 37 email contacts with David Ignatius between 2015 and 2018. But now it's being reported that they were not just regular email contacts, they were regular lunch buddies. They had lunch on a regular basis all the time for years. So they're good buddies. Just wasn't some business email contacts. These guys had lunch together on a regular basis for years, in addition to the 37 email contacts. And, of course, David Ignatius, of course, is the one who reported on the Flynn Kislyak phone call. And that almost certainly came from Baker, James Baker, who also was one who approved the money to go to Stefan Halper and probably knew what he was going to do, what he was being paid for with that taxpayer money, which would implicate him in other crimes as well. There's a lot of people. There's probably two to three dozen, at least 2 to 3 dozen, fairly high-level people that are going to be indicted, and then I expect another probably couple of dozen who are like second, third tier who just kind of got caught up in this, probably should have known and did know what was going on but chose not to talk about it or whatever. They'll be facing some problems, but I think the top tier of these criminal conspirators, 2 to 3 dozen of them, are all going to be indicted, and I would put Mr. Baker on that list. There'll be 2 James Bakers. One of them is cooperating, so the other one's probably going to get the shaft. Checking in with Paul Sperry, and of course he's saying that, of course, in their book, Glenn Simpson and Peter Frisch state that they were early and influential sources for the New York Times on the whole Russiagate hoax. Well, there you go. Yeah, we've seen other things out of that book that I'm very surprised that Glenn Simpson and Frisch would put in that book. But at the time when they wrote the book, the Mueller investigation was ongoing, and it looked like that there would be heroes by admitting that they were early on promoting and pushing a lot of this crap. But now that it's all blown up, a lot of the things I guess that they put in that book, I bet they wish they could get back. We also have Sperry suggesting that there were no Russians. There were no Russians. Where have I heard that before? There were no Russians, only Simpson, Steele, and Hillary Clinton's lawyers. There were no Russians, only Simpson, Steele, and Hillary Clinton's lawyers. It's now being suspected that we talked yesterday about the name Crosswind being another one of these names that they used in this investigation, and it's now being suggested and pretty much believed that Carter Page would have been Crosswind, and that's coming from Techno Fog. Crosswind was probably Carter Page. And this is another interesting comment made by Techno Fog regarding Michael Flynn. And it's being suggested by Techno Fog that Flynn had to be taken out because, as the Strzok Page email said, quote, before he tells them and the whole thing goes underground. Remember that Strzok Page text that we really didn't know what they were talking about? Well, Techno Fog believes they were talking about Flynn and the fact that Flynn, once he becomes National Security Advisor, before he tells them and the whole thing goes underground. Meaning Flynn would come in and he would tell whoever what kind of shenanigans go on, and that their whole thing would have to go underground. And the fact that he would discover that once he was in his position as National Security Advisor, that he would discover the criminal investigation or counterintelligence, whatever you want to call it, the investigation into the Trump campaign, that Flynn was going to discover that. And he would discover that he, too, was part of it, that he was one of the people being investigated. And so they were worried about the Carter Page FISA, and they felt that they had to protect the Carter Page FISA. And so the Technofog suggesting it's these reasons why they had to get rid of Flynn, why they had to run the frame up on Flynn and take such a great risk, is because they're thinking, once Flynn comes in as a National Security Advisor, he's a straight shooter. He'll sniff out what we're doing, and we're screwed. He'll also sniff out the Carter Page FISA, which is what we're using to get him and Trump and everyone around him. So we got to take out Flynn. That's why they took such great and extraordinary risk, and it backfired on them badly. And now the chickens are definitely coming home to roost. These people have a lot of problems. I think you know what kind. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.